Hi, I'm Lena, and I want to tell you about my amazing summer vacation in Italy. Last year, I went to visit my grandparents, and it was one of the best trips I've ever had. It all started when I arrived at the airport in Italy. I had never been there before, so I was really excited. My grandparents live in a small village in the countryside, far from the busy cities. When I saw my grandmother, Maria, at the airport, she gave me a big hug and said, "Benvenuta, Lena. Welcome to Italy." I was so happy to see her again, especially since I hadn't seen her in 2 years. We drove to the village in her car, and as we were driving, I couldn't stop looking out of the window. The views were amazing. There were green hills, vineyards, and little stone houses everywhere. It was so different from my home in the city. The roads were narrow, and everything was peaceful and quiet. When we got to their house, my grandfather, Giovanni, was waiting for me outside. He was wearing his big sun hat, smiling and waving. "Ciao, Lena," he said as he gave me a handshake. It felt so good to be with them again. I had missed them so much. The first few days in Italy were full of fun. I spent time in the garden with my grandmother, helping her pick tomatoes and fresh herbs for dinner. We made pasta from scratch, and it was delicious. Every evening, we sat outside, ate dinner, and talked about family stories. My grandmother told me stories about her childhood, and my grandfather played the guitar and sang old songs. I felt so connected to my family's history. One day, my grandparents and I decided to visit a nearby town. The town was very old, with narrow cobblestone streets. There was a beautiful church in the middle of the town square. I loved exploring the little shops and walking around the town. I bought a necklace made by a local artist as a souvenir. Another day, I helped my grandmother make pizza. She showed me how to make the dough, and we added fresh ingredients like tomatoes, mozzarella, and basil. It was so fun to make the pizza together, and when we tasted it, I was amazed. "This is the best pizza I've ever eaten," I said. My grandmother smiled and said, "It's the Italian way." On my last day, my grandparents took me to the beach. It was just a short drive away, and the weather was perfect. The water was warm, and the beach was beautiful. We swam, played volleyball, and spent the whole day enjoying the sun. I didn't want the vacation to end. It felt so good to be with my grandparents, and I was so happy. When it was time to leave, I felt a little sad, but my grandmother hugged me and said, "Come back soon, Lena. You will always be welcome here." My grandfather promised to send me some homemade olive oil when I got back home. I smiled and said goodbye. As I sat on the plane back home, I remembered everything from my trip. The beautiful countryside, the delicious food, and the time I spent with my grandparents. It was an unforgettable adventure. I knew I would visit again someday, and I couldn't wait to tell my friends all about it.